Don't worry about that. We're going to get into our duelist introductions here for the final round of Swiss. We've got Casey from Dania, Florida. Favorite card is Rescue Cat.
It's a classic Rescue Cat.
Mm-hmm.
And their opponent will be Kalen from Kansas City, Missouri. Their favorite card, a precursor to what they'll be playing today, TENPAI Dragon Chandra.
Oh. Well, we wanted to begin. Let's go ahead and pick the dice off the table here and try that again.
I might be a little excited.
9.
So lucky number 9 for Kalen.
Ooh.
8.
Sorry, buddy.
So just one number off. And speaking of one number, for those of you who may not know about the cultural significance of the TENPAI Dragon deck, TENPAI is based on the ancient game Mahjong, and the term TENPAI actually just means effectively one game piece away from victory. So we'll see who is one card away from victory in this Mahjong mirror match.
I will normal summon TENPAI Dragon Hydra and activate the
Yep.
So unfortunately here for Casey, it doesn't look like he has access to the Fenrir in his deck. He actually has not only the 2 copies of Fenrir, he has a Pressured Planet Race-Off, Set Rotation, and Terraforming. I only point that out because if you are forced to go first with the TENPAI strategy, you really do want to establish Fenrir plus Erratic Seal as your 2 points of interaction plus whatever hand interactions that you have to back that up. So he is going to be forced to only rely on the TENPAI monsters themselves here to establish a field going first.
Well, speaking of hand interactions, we did see the Droll and Lockbird come down after the Sangen Kaimen was used.
Overall, probably not going to have the biggest impact, all things considered, because the Erratic Seal is going to establish a point of interaction, but then also establish some follow-up with its effect when tributed.
Set 1, and I will end my turn.
So very much the standard opening here, which is a single set card and the use of that Erratic Dragon of the Heavenly Spheres. So now it is Kalen's turn to draw. Let's see.
Stand by.
Standby's good.
Wait, please.
Phase 1 is good.
You know what card is really good in mirror matches?
Infinite.
Monster Reborn.
It absolutely is, right? It's one thing to activate Lullaby of Obedience in a Snake Eye mirror match, but it's even more fun to just use an old-fashioned card like Monster Reborn to grab that missing tile you need, sort of a run strategy.
Yeah, and we see that singleton copy of Monster Reborn in Kalen's hand. So here, one of the interesting things about field spells is that oftentimes you wait for the activation of a card like Race Off because you want to cut them from searching. Sangen Summoning, on the other hand, is a field spell that has that additional protection effect, so sometimes it's actually more valuable to stop the terraforming as opposed to the search effect from the field spell in and of itself.
Kalen excited to see that Kashtira Fenrir put the 2 Ash Blossoms and Joyous Spring on the bottom of the deck. Of course, from now on, there will be halved damage because of the effect of Pot of Prosperity. But as we all very well know, this is a deck that is capable of doing more than 16,000 damage, so it could win in the very first turn of the player here.
Special summon.
Committing Kashtira Fenrir to the board. Looks like the special summon is good. Activation of the effect, we do see that there is an Effect Veiler in Casey's hand. May be coming down now.
Looks like there's 2 copies of Effect Veiler. A little bit unfortunate. That's limited to...
Not getting a whole lot done with the Effect Veilers. Of course, there's that threat of the Kashtira Fenrir there, of course, but...
yeah, just limited applications here.
Doesn't necessarily move the game state forward to sit on it, and would move the game state forward to really try to stop it. But now we're going to see our TENPAI Dragon Fadra.
So here he's going to immediately Synchro Summon in main phase 1. Oh no, he's actually going to go into a Link.
No one could blame you. I mean, at this point, they're just sending the cards to the graveyard there, so it's hard to tell. But we're going to see Effect Veiler there as Hida tries to grab the Ash Blossom. But there's the Monster Reborn. Well, let's reborn the monster. We're going to go ahead and get the TENPAI Dragon Padra.
Gonna try it again.
Sometimes in Mahjong, you win with your own pieces, and sometimes you just grab some from your opponent.
So we use both copies of Effect Veiler, but we see here that Kalen's able to push through both copies. And if there are hand interactions that you draw multiple copies of, Effect Veiler is amongst the better ones because you can actually activate multiple copies in a turn, unlike some of the other more recently released hand interactions.
Card in hand.
Beck Baylor certainly being a classic from the good old days of before you can only use this card once per turn. But we are seeing Forbidden Droplet come down, getting rid of the negated Hermetic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres to stop from any of the stuff happening with Promethean Princess. But it looks like it's just going to go to the battle phase there, 2700.
1350.
Or 1350, of course, that's right, the Pot of Prosperity we earlier mentioned.
There's quite a few cards here that Casey could draw that just Singleton could get him back into the game.
Oh my god.
So,
It's gonna be
650. No, 625.
Doing some very complicated math here, right? We're card game majors, we're not necessarily math majors, but we're figuring out the life points nonetheless.
This is really a good illustration of what it's like when players play so many hand interactions and just interaction points in general, where both of these players basically threw 4 or 5 cards at each other, whittled it down to literally just this Promethean Princess on field, 1 card in hand versus absolutely nothing at Casey's disposal. Oh, is that the 3rd Effect Veiler?
I believe it is. Now that is going to be helpful though to stop the Promethean Princess Bestower of Flames from using its effect again. However, depending on what we draw. Up, Ever the Judge, Kalen recognizing that the opponent didn't cut before they added the card.
My turn, 'cause, you know, I didn't
I
have
didn't
any
cut. No, he's right.
So making sure that before we add that card to the hand, we shuffle and cut the deck, and we did.
Ooh, look at that draw too.
Oh man,
Saying in Kaiman.
going to the...
Oh, sorry. It's saying in Summoning. We already knew that the Fenrir is in hand.
Activate.
Yeah.
All right, now it's time to build that custom hand by adding any of these Tenpai Dragons to the hand. Looks like we're going to go for Tenpai Dragon Chundra this time.
Yeah, you can hear Casey asking, am I allowed to concede? Because with Promethean Princess and Chundra, there's 2 monsters in which he would need to negate, and he only has 1 Effect Veiler. Although he did access all 3. So we see there the power of being able to go second, something that we commented on in the introductions. Kalen took immense advantage of that opportunity. Casey was only able to establish Hermetic Seal, just the nature of the Tenpai deck. There was a variety of cards from Monster Reborn to Infinite Impermanence that allowed Kalen to structure the opening turn in such a way to take advantage of going second.
I can adapt, I can adjust, so however they need me to, you know, I can.
We'll say that this is certainly a match that duelists need to learn. So even if you're not necessarily a Tenpai Dragon enthusiast like some of us here, it's an important match because you are going to be seeing this. The next time you go to your local tournament, the next time you go to your regional championships, or if you're going to meet us at the NEWCQ in Austin this year, you need to know this match. So definitely pay attention and, well, learn a little Mahjong tips from some of the greatest duelists we have today.
So heading here into game 2, there's always a little bit of that question of, you know it's a mirror match. Both players know it's a mirror match. Is Casey just going to kind of stick to the typical you can go first, or does Kalen come well prepared for this with specific cards in their side deck that actually take advantage of being forced to go first? And it does look like they have 3 copies of Dimensional Barrier, a card that we've seen really universally across the board. They also have 3 copies of Crossout Designator. So there are a variety of cards that could be sided in on the assumption that Kalen ends up having to go first, which is typically what happens here in these mirror matches.
Both players do seem to have link strategies as well as synchro strategies, so while the Dimensional Barrier is very powerful, it won't necessarily cut off the plays completely, it will just slow them down. So this could be a much more grindy Tenpai mirror match, depending. Of course, Crossout Designator is a very popular card this format and is very interesting in the mirror match, of course, because you just have so many different options. It becomes a very more in thought-intensive activation. You're not just necessarily saying, oh, cool, there's a card I can stop. You have to really think, okay, what would I do? And what would really feel bad if it was stopped? So we'll see if the cross-out designators come in on either side.
Yeah, both of these players come well equipped with the Raging Phoenix, World Sea Dragons, Atlantis combo that we've seen popularized by Snake Eye and Fire King-based strategies over the last handful of months. So there are pathways utilizing only Link monsters if you get locked out of Synchro Summons, but it is typically going to still stymie some of the plays with Dimensional Bear because you do have to essentially bait the Dimensional Bear out at some point. So if you end up having to go into the battle phase to activate an effect that would allow you to Synchro Summon, that's when it's absolutely backbreaking. If you have to rely on links, you have to do a lot of that in main phase 1, and sometimes if you have to do that all in main phase 1, the interactions that are able to be established on that opening turn when the opponent goes first can sometimes be too much, even if you have those link pathways as well. But it just illustrates the back and forth that even if Dimensional Bear is activated, it's not necessarily game over.
Well, it's about time to find out who's going to go first and second as our players are done shuffling and have drawn for their turn. So we're going into game 2 here of our YCS round 11, the last round of Swiss before we go to the top cut.
Appreciate it.
So who has to go first? Looks like Kalen has been made to go first, so going to start off with the Kashtira Fenrir.
As we mentioned in the previous game, when you are forced to go first, it is amongst the absolute best opening plays because it just establishes a point of interaction, a quite free point of interaction. And if you're forced to go first, your deck, unlike some of the other popular ones in the format, you know, their opening plays are quite a bit more watered down. A Fenrir just adds that point of interaction that can sometimes buy you the turn that you need to actually get to a turn with a battle phase.
Well, definitely getting set up for that turn with the battle phase by activating Songen Summoning and grabbing a single copy of the TENPAI DRAGON Paidra.
And we see the great utility of Fenrir. You know, sometimes Fenrir in a full-blown Kashtira strategy is searching for Rise Hearts or follow-up of the consecutive turn. Here, it's just used as discard fodder. So that Fenrir that was searched was immediately discarded with Sangen Summoning, kind of mitigating the drawback of having to discard after utilizing the effect to search.
It also helps that, again, the Kashtira Fenrir is a 7, very popular number, of course, because of its easy access, mathematically speaking, to 10 star synchros. But looks like we're going to go ahead and use Paidra to get the Songen Kaimen, activate the Songen Kaimen to add the TENPAI DRAGON Shundra to the hand. Go ahead and special summon the TENPAI DRAGON Shundra and then combine those two into our first synchro summon of the duel.
Yes.
And it looks like a Biden to Dragion. It's now going to be sent away for Hieratic Seal. So this was just a way of putting Biden Dragion into the graveyard, potentially to be special summoned out at a later point.
Now that feels like one of those has to be crossed out designator.
Your turn, dueler.
I think I saw a copy of Called by the Grave.
Main phase 1.
Yep.
We are going to start similarly to you and activate infinite permanence targeting Hieratic Seal.
Good job, yep.
So one good turn deserves another, negating the effect of the Hieratic Dragon of Heavenly Spheres there. Casey going to consider his next move here. Certainly has access to the battle phase, something that every Tenpai player wants. So activates their own copy of the Songen Summoning Field spell. Taking a moment to consider.
You know, weighing this decision. Looks like he actually already has another copy of Summoning in hand, a Kaimen in hand, and I think I saw a Chandra in hand. So he already has access to his engine. It's a question of how we can whittle through that Fenrir plus 2 spell and trap cards.
I am going to enter battle phase.
Certainly a heavy burden to carry these cards into victory, right?
Yes.
We are going to the battle phase, though. We're at the beginning of the battle phase. Looks like the Hieratic Dragon of Heavenly Spheres will activate its effects. And since it's been tributed, we're going to go ahead and reach into the deck here for another monster card.
Yep, even though the effect is negated, it still obviously has an effect when tributed that will allow him to special summon a dragon from the deck. In the previous game, we actually saw Casey forced to utilize Forbidden Droplet and not be able to get the Hieratic Seal summon from deck. Here, though, Kalen is able to actually still resolve the effect of Hieratic Seal because it has been tributed in an attempt to activate the effect even though it was negated.
Effect of Hydra.
Yes.
So Fadra's going to bring back Paidra, and Paidra is going to see if we can get another spell and trap here.
Presumably, it's going to be a copy of Kaimen.
Good to see all 3 Mahjong Dragons on the field there, representing the white, green, and red tiles from the original game. But a lot of decent ways to get back in on Casey's side with a Songen Kaimen in hand.
We're seeing some of the intricacies of the mirror match, you know, with Biden Dragion in the graveyard for Kalen. You know, there's the possibility that if Casey missteps, that Biden Dragion can pop right out of the graveyard
Turn attack on
if 3 more attacks have been declared.
Fenrir.
On battle step?
Yep.
Activate cross out. Target trigger.
And
Target.
there it
Call trigger.
is. So attempting to use the effective crossout designator by banishing Tenpai Dragon Chundra to, well, stop Casey's Tenpai Dragon Chundra.
Yeah, this could be crippling. Chundra's arguably one of the most important Tenpai monsters to have resolved during the battle phase.
Looks like we're good on the Sangen Kaiman, so picking up the deck here, likely to grab a Pydra. Oh, looks like maybe it's going to be actually a Tenpai Dragon Fadra from the looks of it. So feeling in a good position there, certainly having 2 pieces on the board. But with the Chundra gone, now it is going to have its effects negated via crossout designator. So it's up to Fadra to get things done.
And I think the Called by the Grave might end up being pretty pivotal here in the battle phase.
Activate the effect to sync or something.
That's fine.
So this could actually be here a...
Watching that Black Rose Dragon light tightly there, but also thinking about the Sangen Bident Dragon.
The problem is if he goes for something with the assumption that he'll be able to special summon back from Grave, that's where the Called by the Grave might end up really being backbreaking.
Chain link 1, activate the effect. Target Fadra.
Activate my call by technique. Target Fadra.
Called by the Grave.
So I wonder if he has a copy of Called by the Grave in his deck, because he does have the crossout designator in his own hand. Oh, wow.
Oh,
yeah.
and that's the handshake. Kalen takes it. Just quickly making it to victory with the Called by the Grave card there again. All you need is just 1 card away from victory, and as we saw these players try to find that card, in this case it was Called by the Grave. Great sportsmanship as Casey wishes Kalen good luck in topping, and well, we might be able to see Kalen up there in the top cut, but we'll get a chance to interview them in just a moment. But wow, what a match though. It's really goes to show you that it's not necessarily lightning fast when I said it's a lightning explosion of cards. It's these really crucial moves, like you were saying, Joe, just back and forth, making sure that there is no mistake. Each card feeling maybe heavier than they ever had before as you activate them.
And we saw there that Kalen was able to navigate going second, which is obviously the ideal situation for the Tenpai strategy, but also whenever you have access to Fenrir, it really pushes the viability of that opening play. So even though the deck prefers to go second, you know, when you establish seals, plus Fenrir, plus a few hand interactions, of course, in this case, the critical Call by the Grave and crossout designator, all of a sudden you do have 4 or 5 different points of interaction, which can be difficult even for the best Tenpai player to navigate through.
No, those Heavenly Spheres have brought a lot of duelists to victory and sometimes have been the go-to defensive play, including for Dragon Link players, so it's nice to see that Dragon doing good work again. But again, just wild stuff to see, and we are very excited again for all of the duelists who have really worked their butt off, I would say, to get to this top cut, because think about it. You had to go not only through 9 rounds of Yu-Gi-Oh! Yesterday, but you also still had to go to 2 rounds fresh and earlier than before. But we'll get a chance to see how all that feels in just a moment when we interview Kalen in our Round 11 interview. We'll see you soon. And we're back here with no stranger to the featured match stage, a duelist who needs no introduction, but Kalen will introduce you anyway. You've been here before. Does it feel any different when you're up here even after all this time?
You always get your jitters for sure, because like being on stage is like, ooh, I'm on stage. Like people are watching me. People are going to say something about this. However, you know, the experience is always an individual, and this individual experience was fun.
Now, on a Tenpai Dragon mirror match, every card is so important. It must feel so heavy in your hands trying to figure out when to activate it. Was there any moment that like really stood out in the duel?
So yes, at least agreeing to the tangent before. Now to the question, in this particular experience, no. All plays were pretty much readable. Tenpai really wants to go second, so like I kind of knew I was gonna go first. So from there, I just cleaned up.
Well, you did an excellent job there. That said, with your record, you really may make the top cut. So how do you feel about your chances of taking the whole tournament if you manage to get back to the stage?
Well, so if my praying goes through and everything goes right, I think I have a very good chance,
Well, good deal. Keep up that attitude. I know we're all cheering for you, but again, we're going to send it back to the desk so we can find out a little bit more of the tournament, and then we'll be talking about our top cut before you know it.